I am going to help you through this. Everybody,
Okay.
welcome to the show. We are here,
Okay.
we are live, and we're starting with laughing, which is exactly the place that I love to start. God knows we need a little bit of laughter every once in a
Yes,
while,
we do.
especially now while the world is burning. So Joe
Mhm.
Hart, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sharon. This is going to be fun. Thanks for inviting me.
This is going to be fun. I was thinking about earlier the time I asked you to come on that business show.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Oh, the things you were
Oh,
saying.
that radio show.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
Did you remember that my client's wife was there? I didn't know that.
Yes. She
Okay.
was sitting across the table from us.
And you were yourself.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't know, it's it can be shocking, because you were having fun and she wasn't sure what was happening. And I loved every minute of it.
I forgot all about that. It was on one of the Tampa AM stations.
Yeah, 1250.
Yeah, that was fun.
Show.
Sadly, I should have taken it seriously, but I didn't. But I had a very good time, and I hope some of our comments helped somebody.
Well, Joe, that's the best part. And why do you think you're on this show?
Yeah.
Hopefully, like, somebody will get something. Right?
I hope.
Let's all hope. All right, so let me do the proper framework for introducing you. So, and all the proper stuff will be in the description. And if anybody cares to read it, go ahead and click away. You can find Joe Part and all of his successes. Joe Part is one of the first friends that I met when I moved to Tampa Bay from New York 16 years ago. So I met Joe as I was working for a local hospital, and Joe introduced, so I didn't stay there too long. And then I ended up at a practice that I ran for 8 years that Joe knows very well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, Joe stayed in my life. All the others might not have, but Joe remains, even in
Well, Sharon, I think what happened is, we immediately recognized that we shared the same values,
Yes.
which at your first employer, you did not share values, nor did I, with them. So I think we kind of bonded over the frustration of not treating people properly.
Ugh,
and you moved on, to a beautiful place that helped you grow. Mm-hmm. And I stayed with them. Of course, they were clients, and there was a very happy ending with your success.
That's right. And we'll leave it at that. So we're going to have some fun today, but we want to help some people. And Joe, just so everybody knows, has a very, very special place in my heart. He has introduced me to so many wonderful people throughout Tampa Bay. And I feel like every time I needed to maybe even help a client, if they were in an area, I would think, well, who does Joe know that I could connect to in that area? And then it'll just make it easier for me and then ultimately benefit my client. Does that make sense to you, Joe?
Yeah, it does. Because Sharon, again, we both, are blessed with personalities that really enjoy meeting people. And in the course of meeting people, you connect with people who you enjoy their personality, you share their values on business and life. And eventually, over decades, you end up with this, we're blessed with very, very large networks of friends.
Yeah.
Many of whom we were blessed became clients, but the friendship was always first. And we connected on many levels to introduce one another, as is always the best way to grow, to one another. So it was fun. It is always fun for me to connect people when I know or have a really strong belief that they're going to, number one, enjoy one another's company, and hopefully they could develop that in other areas, be it business or a personal friendship. So it was always so rewarding. That was the joy of my business, was brokering people.
Yeah.
never brokering insurance.
Right. And I always admired that because I have always done business the same way. But you really showed me to just another level that really the more you are yourself and make a connection with another human being versus going into that sale that, just turns everybody off, then you will most likely benefit and gain that business. So I want to talk to you about this time. I remember the day I called you. I was on a flight to Chicago. I was new in business. I was working with a client and I was flying down to do some type of convention with them. And I was so excited to call you because I had heard about this book. And I was like, oh, Joe loves books. I'm going to call him because Rita Lohman had told me about this book and had handed it out at an event that I was attending. So I'm going to hold it up on the podcast. You won't be able to see it, but it's called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. I called Joe. I'm like, Joe, you got to write this down.
I remember that. And I was embarrassed because I said, you were so excited about the book, so excited about the content and how much you shared with the content and related to it. And I said, yeah, Sharon, I read that about a year ago. Reread it. I reread it about every 6 months. And I didn't want to pop your bubble, but I let you go off raving about it.
Then you popped it.
Yes, then I said, yeah, I read that about a year ago.
It made me laugh so hard because here I was thinking that you was the CEO and it taught me so much about relationships that didn't read the book. Oh my God, I still laugh about.
Do you know what, Sharon, do you know what we both loved about that book? It validated how we both view life and business relationships. So everything Keith was saying was what we were living. And that's always so much fun to read a book and go, oh my God, I am on track. I am doing the right thing. And here's this best-selling author that is simply confirming what we knew a year or two ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God. I always say because I speak about, I even have my my logo on the book because I've threatened people's lives of stealing it when I'm speaking at an event because I would all highlighted. I listen to it before I go. Well, I don't go anywhere now, I'm living Zoom life, baby. I'm party on the bottom. I might look a halfway decent on the top, but I got sweat shorts on and flip-flops.
Well, Sharon, I have to share with you and your audience, I have an LL Bean t-shirt on and black boxer shorts. So that is my life up in Asheville.
Right. Well, it wasn't always that way, Joe. Joe founded a company with his lovely wife, Karen, his better half.
Yes, much better.
Much, much better.
Sharon, and again, Karen well, but over time, everyone recognized that she was the brains and I was the legs and the lips of the company development. And it was so true. Had I been left to my own without a partner that as different and more thoughtful, we
you would
wouldn't
have just had chefs coming in and cook for the staff all day and clients. You just would have ordered everything from Lucky Dill.
Right.
And brought it in and just had a good time. Maybe some music.
Right. Yeah, because I was obsessed with making people happy. And she shared that, but she also, being in business, said, well, we need to do that and try to make a little money to support our staff in the community and, our clients.
So I want to help the audience with two things today. Number one, I want to try to help some people out there get a job because, of course, we're living in extreme times. Yeah. And number two, I want to help some employers stop being assholes. Can you help me with that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So let's start with helping people get a job. I've done a few workshops recently, and I know because I've recruited and I hate it, and I've said this to everybody. So even if somebody asks me, will you recruit? I tell them the story of how much I hate it.
Yeah.
because I think the fact that people today, Joe, still get a job with a piece of paper is right. Is that Otis?
That's Otis and Weezer. The two are two little hound dogs, and there's a bear in the backyard with her cub.
Oh, can you show us?
If anyone, well, hold on.
You gotta show us. Joe is reporting live from Asheville, everybody, and he has bears in his backyard. It's my favorite part of his Facebook page.
Could you see the bear?
Go down a little more. There it is. Joe, you might have just made my show go viral. Down again. Wow.
Yeah. She basically lives here. Her two cubs are somewhere back there climbing trees. But for your audience, there's downtown Asheville, if you could see it.
No, you only have to work how many years to have this life, Joe?
40.
Just 40? No problem. Yeah. Just 40. And all day, every day. Not a big deal. Commit your entire life to it and, not have much free time, but just work all the time. And then you can hang out with the bears, right? It just doesn't you just didn't get lucky, right? From what I understand.
I am telling you, it is such a joy and so calming to see the animals up here, because this mountain that we live on, it's called Elk Mountain Scenic Highway, and it kind of overlooks Asheville. And talk about gratitude. It is impossible not to live my life, which I've always lived, with a lot of gratitude towards, my family, my wife especially, and then our colleagues and then our clients. But now that I'm retired, the gratitude of being able to enjoy, the fruits of all those decades of fun work. I enjoyed every day of work. But watching the bears and the turkeys and the deer and the bike riders on the mountain, it is pretty special. But I'm just infused with gratitude over where we ended up by luck.
And you deserve, it's not luck. You deserve every piece of it.
Well, Sharon, everybody, or most people, work very, very hard. Yes. But there's always luck involved too. And I don't diminish how luck played a part.
Luck met human potential, which is what you have.
Okay. Well, there you go.
There you go. He's not very good at taking any kind of compliments. He's used to only giving them out. So with that said, let's go back to helping some people get a job. So you've always treated your staff incredibly, but you did not, I get hired to speak at medical conferences to talk about how to hire a dream team. And I always crack up that's why they bring me on, because it's almost impossible, you're going to make mistakes. You were sure about this person and a mistake happened. But how many people that were in your leadership team did you hire off of an ad on Indeed or a forum?
Zero. Zero.
So let's tell people how did they get to you, Joe?
Well, most of the people, and I'll give you both avenues that led to our employee population. Because I was out in the community all day, every day, I met a lot of people. And when somebody struck me as special, different, more sincere, I always used to say I would only even consider hiring somebody if I would allow my grandkids to stay with them. Not only would I allow it, I would want my grandkids to stay with them, because they would be in such great care, probably have a great time, learn something. So number one, I looked for people that I really felt as though they could be as my second family. So I looked for that just genuine, caring, honest, wonderful person. And they're few and far between, but when you find them, I would simply reach out to them and say, look, I know you're not looking, but I have a cup of coffee with you. I was so impressed with you. I want to tell you about our firm, our opportunity, our colleagues. And if you like what I say, I will step out of the equation, and I'll allow, I won't allow you, I will set up meetings for you to meet half of the staff. And if after having a cup of coffee with 6 people, 8 people, you want to return to the conversation with me of, I'm interested, where would I fit in? What would I do? What would I get paid? I'll be the last person you talk to, but talk to the team first. So, Sharon, number one has to be out in the community to meet people who might not be looking, but might be so impressed with somebody that they will reach out to them and say, hey, what are you doing? Who are you? What are you doing? Tell me about your background. And that might be getting involved in everything from charitable work to, different groups of interest that one might have. So you've got to be out there. But I've never hired anybody in all of the years of Alltrust from a resume or a cold solicitation. Now, additionally, when people would come to the firm and they would be marketing something to me. Now, it could have been one of the vendor partners we worked with. It could have been somebody selling a product or service we needed to improve efficiency. Again, meeting a lot of people periodically when I would be in a meeting with somebody that I was really impressed with, how articulate they were. I would always ask questions about who they are personally. And when I was very impressed with them, I would say, could I flip this around? I want to talk to you about our firm. Mm-hmm. And, some of the folks that are there now that have been there close to 20 years, Adam, Corey, they didn't come looking for jobs. They came looking to sell me a product or service. And it was turned around where I was simply so impressed with them that I asked if, Karen and I could have dinner with, them and their wife or girlfriend. And then one thing led to another. So getting a job today, I know, is harder than it was decades ago, but it's still all about personal engagement. And if I was looking for a job, the first thing I would do would be research firms that I felt culturally aligned with, that what they do in the community is good stuff. And it's not for, just branding themselves as a best employer, but folks who really gave till it hurts, that really had a reputation for treating their colleagues extraordinarily well, personally and financially. I would try to make a list of those type of companies. And I would then reach out to one of the senior executives and just be honest with them and say, I have researched dozens and dozens of companies in Tampa Bay that I am interested in. And could I swing by for a 10-minute cup of coffee to introduce myself? Because you're one of the companies, boy, I would like to see if I could fit in and make my career there. So that's personally what I would do. One of the things that I think, Sharon, we both found, there are a lot of good people out there. There are a lot of people who want to help other people. And those are the type of people that will say, yeah, sure, we're not hiring. They'll put up that defensive line, but come on by for a cup of coffee and I'd be happy to share my thoughts and meet you. But if you're honest with people and say, I've done a lot of homework and boy, am I impressed with who leads your company, who works at your company, what your company does in the community, you're the type of company that I would want to be at. And I know you're not hiring, but could I come by and introduce myself? 10 minutes. And, if you think there's a reason to continue the conversation, I would be so flattered. That's how I would approach a job hunt nowadays.
That's almost the exact same advice I gave in my workshop, Joe. Thank you.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I always start with research. Like, first you have to figure out what you love, right?
Hmm.
You know, a lot of people say to me, I'm not really sure what I want to do. I just know that I hate the job I'm in and I have to go somewhere else. Well,
Yeah.
you have to define what you enjoy doing, because
Yeah.
there is such a thing as like, you love horses? I don't know. You could probably end up working with horses, whatever it is, but whatever, you have to be passionate about what you're doing or you're not going to stay regardless.
Yeah.
So try to find something you love, and then exactly that, reach out. You know, when I first moved here 16 years ago, I thought I was destined. I probably never said this to you. I thought I was destined to work at the Balance Institute. I had a real thing for balance because I had worked with a pasturography balance center up in New
Oh,
York before I left.
I never knew that.
Yeah, and so what I did was, because I really thought, like, you know, I'm going to work for this guy, I wrote a letter to the CEO, and he responded to me because I did exactly what you said. I was just honest. I told him how impressed I was, and that, you know, the company that I was working for in New York had modeled the company after his, and I would love to just spend some time with you. They weren't hiring. It didn't work out. I ended up working for that hospital. But, you know, that's the exact thing that I would do. And I think it's the greatest advice. I think that people go about getting a job today really wrong. And I think that you should rely more upon your network and tell people that
Yeah.
you love and love you, that you're looking. And, you know, when I was thinking, when you were sharing
Yeah.
about meeting with that guy, you know, whoever it is, for a cup of coffee, he might be thinking, wow, you know, because the CEO or somebody in a company is looking for talent, right? And if they're
Yeah.
not hiring, they can, one of their friends could potentially, and pass
And,
off that resume.
and Sharon, you and I both know CEOs, business owners, folks in leadership, regardless of what they say, they're always looking for great talent.
Yeah.
Always. It's no different than a sports team. You're always looking for the next great player. So there is no downside to doing that. Number one, the person you call is going to be flattered that you took the time to research their company, that you think so highly of their company that you would like to meet with them. There is no downside. At the very least, you're going to call somebody who is flattered by the call. At the best, you're going to have a cup of coffee with him or her. I would always, when I was giving talks to other business owners about, you know, how our firm grew from Karen and I, you know, to a firm that received lots of accolades statewide and nationally, I would always boil it down to three simple metrics. Number one, I cared more about my colleagues than anybody else in our business. They were number one. Number two came the clients, but they were not a distant, but they were clearly number two. And number three, the community. You know, you can't, if there's a company that has no community engagement, whether charitably or whatever their engagement is, that simply means that the leadership is selfish.
Yes.
So it's pretty easy to identify companies that you're culturally aligned with. Number one, how do they treat their people? How do they pay their people? What is the average tenure of their people? Number two, what's their reputation in the business community with their clients? And number three, if they're not engaged with the community, to me, it's a reflection that ownership is selfish, and that I don't want to work with selfish people. So I would tell your friends and clients that are looking for employment, it's pretty easy nowadays with everything that's on the internet to identify companies that do the right thing by those three C's.
I love that, Joe. That's great advice. Let's talk for a minute just about employers doing a better job. So I get a lot of feedback, of course, working with all different clients and having a lot of connections in the community about how horrible it has been in terms of the communication piece. So one of the, it's already horrible that we've been going through this COVID-19 and then the racial unrest.
Yeah.
When a leader, a CEO, an entrepreneur, a business owner, whatever you want to call them, your management team does not confront or have a discussion, an open discussion with your staff, with your team, with your extended family, dare I say,
Yeah.
that you spend the most time
Yeah.
with.
Right.
How toxic is that, in your opinion?
Oh, it pollutes a company.
Yeah.
And once pollution is in a company, it's very difficult, to clean those waters up. I don't think there are few things that are more important than speaking, number one, individually to every team member about everything that is happening internally, externally. One of the things that we did that I think was the best investment we ever made to protect the culture, to build the culture and then protect the culture. Every day we bought lunch for all the colleagues that were in the office. Many were out, but there'd always be a group of a dozen or two that were there. We'd buy lunch every day. Well, when you sit around a conference room and, the phones are put on hold, your cell phones are still on for any client emergency, and you'd all eat together, it was an incredibly bonding and open discussion of everything. It would be everything from, client interactions to frustrations with this or that, to the joys of what is happening in their personal life. And those few bucks that we would spend catering lunch every day, I think was the most meaningful cultural event that happened, because you can't eat with somebody, in my opinion, you can't eat with somebody every day and not try really hard to get along and like them.
Yeah.
There's just something that happens in that dynamic. I've always looked at two dynamics that help bond a relationship. One is if you laugh together with somebody, you're sharing, you share a personality where you find the same things funny. Number two, if you eat together, it just is a warm, friendly thing, and it really promotes conversation. So, well, Sharon, let me reflect on what you do. You work with a lot of physician groups, as we did, large physician groups and mid-sized physician groups. And when we were building the business decades ago, I was so happy to have the client. I would listen to some of the comments of some of the physicians, and I would say to myself, dear God,
Yeah.
how could they be so bright academically and not get to how to treat their people properly? As the firm grew, I became more mature. I would be very honest with them. They would talk to me about their frustration of turnover. And I would say, doctor, it's because you don't pay them properly. It's because you don't treat them properly. And they would be shocked. What do you mean? And I would say, you don't underwrite. You're a healthcare provider. You don't pay all their healthcare costs. You're looking to save money on that line item rather than develop a group that is deeply appreciative of you from a business leadership and from a personal standpoint. If an employer goes to its population and says, look, I want you to know your health is very, very important to me. We are paying all of your health care. I know it's a financial burden. I know you're going to make a little less money, but you still make a lot of money. You don't need to make all of it. You don't need to make every penny. That needs to be shared with your staff. I know as a patient over my decades, many times I would spend more time with the nurse chatting with the front office than I would actually with the MD. The MD, we would have that transactional relationship. They were all fabulous. I loved every physician I ever dealt with. I come from a family of physicians. but you have to treat your people extraordinarily well. And I think that's what's wrong with a lot of employer-employee relationships. But getting back to your original question, that's what your people need to look for, where the employees validate that, man, this is a great place to work. You know, Sharon takes special care of us financially.
Well, it's Tijuana Flats Friday around here, Joe.
What's that?
It's Tijuana Flats Friday. Every Friday, right. I order Tijuana Flats and I pick it up and I deliver it because we're social distancing.
Yeah.
But those are the things that you must do that. You're so right. And I loved listening to every minute because, you know, I'm sick of myself saying it. And there was a time that I used to go in and restructure a lot of practices. And I'll tell you the only reason that I stopped doing it, because I would leave crying. I couldn't believe what the staff would tell me about how the doctors would treat them.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to limit this. My experience, my experience, which I shared with you, is in that medical community. But all the other companies with 1,000 employees or companies with 25 employees, I would know within 5 minutes of meeting the CEO or the owner what the culture of that company was. And at the end of my career at Alltrust, before I retired, we would turn down clients because I would say, you know, you're going to do great. You're doing great. I'm so flattered you invited us in here. I said, but I don't think we're the right firm for you because we want to deal with employers, and I would say it very politely, that just manage their employee benefits differently. And where I could give you a couple names, and there are dozens of good firms out there that will manage yours perfectly, but I don't want to sit in front of 50 employees and tell them, well, your employer is paying X. And I would watch the single moms and dads in the audience go, my God, I can't afford this.
Yeah.
And again, getting back to the original question of what to look for when you're hunting for a job, hunt for the best employer. Hunt for an employee population that raves about working there, that likes coming into work, that will work till 9 o'clock if they have to, who, you know, and they're easy to identify. But I would not just look for any job. I would look for somewhere where I wanted to go to work, where I really respected leadership, that they really did the right thing in the community. I would run into, and Sharon, I've probably told this to you, I would always be amused when I'd be at industry conferences and I would hear other brokers going, oh my God, I ran into this major client of mine in Publix and I had to run to the other aisle because, you know, I know they would be bitching about this or that. And I would think to myself, that is so odd, because I would love running into my clients because I know I would get a hug, or I know they would say, hey, I got to compliment you on one of your colleagues. They went the extra mile and then this or that. So tell your folks.
You're telling them right now, Joe.
Well, just look for those special employers that their employees really respect them, you know, and love working there, and then simply reach out to the ownership and say, I am so impressed with how your employees feel about you, how the community respects you. You're the type of company I would love to work for. And may I stop by for a cup of coffee just to introduce myself, because I want to be first on the list when and if you're looking for people.
It is the best advice. It is.
And I'm telling you, there's no, as I said 5 minutes ago, there's no downside. Number one, they're going to be flattered. Number two, they're going to be flattered and invite you in.
And flattery works, Joe. That's how you started this with me.
Yeah. Yeah, just so
That's
long as,
actually why we're still friends today.
right, because all we do is tell one another how awesome
Great we are. Joe, we have gone over our allotted time. You've already told me that the dogs will need to poop. It's important. Charlie
yes,
Brown does too.
yeah,
Before we go though, Joe, I can't thank you enough. I think that this information that you've provided is so helpful. I'm sick of hearing myself. I'd much prefer it to come from somebody who founded a company with your better half, Karen, and treated employers and employees and clients with the greatest respect. Your reputation has been phenomenal. I'll never forget the day that you told me that you were making changes and getting ready for retirement. And the first thing I felt was, I felt sad for your employees.
yeah.
I did. I felt sad for them. I felt like, oh, it's so hard to find people that care so much. So
Sharon, I'll tell you one last story about, the type of employer, I hope your folks find. And Karen and I have been so incredibly blessed with the folks that we hired that are still there. But every once in a while, I've been retired now 5 years, believe it or not. But
it's amazing.
Yeah, every once in a while, out of the blue, I'll get an email from one of my old colleagues saying, hey, I was sitting here this morning, looking at my home, thinking about my life, and I wanted to thank you for what you and Karen did. And I swear, I've told Karen 100 times, that means more to me than money.
Yes.
It's really special. So, just look for good people in there all over the place.
It's true. And Joe, you really do. You should be very proud of yourself. I'm very proud to know you. I'm very proud to know Karen. I still to this day always recommend Alltrust, always will, because I know the inside of the culture, and I know that it's surrounded by good people, and happy people attract happy people, and good people attract good people. So Joe, thank you for joining us today. Enjoy beautiful Asheville. We miss you terribly.
Okay.
Yes,
Well, hold on.
You one last time. Oh, Joe.
Pretty cool, huh?
Pretty cool, Joe. Thank you so much.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.